you. So here you go. We're going to start things with our first poll. The first question is, what are you doing to generate less waste? We're going to give you a few moments here to share your responses. Okay, Christine, I am not seeing the poll. Do you see the answers shared here? There we go. There is our poll. So please fill in your answers. Okay, 10 more seconds to finalize your answers on this. Okay, great. And Christine, can you see share what our responses are today?
Sure. So we've got 85% say they don't buy things unless they really need them. 78% say I fix things instead of buying new. 74% say they've stopped buying bottled water. It's a tie. 44% I give the gift of experience instead of things. And I share items with neighbors such as tools and equipment. And 11% said I downsize my home. So.
That's excellent. Great. Okay, we'll be digging a bit more into topics like this today. Next slide, please. So just for everyone to be aware, this is a webinar, so it is being recorded. It will be available on Sustainable Princeton's website in a couple of days. So if you miss anything or want to go back, you're welcome to do so. We are running this, as I mentioned, in a webinar format. So if you have questions, once we get to our featured speaker, please add those into the Q&A section as shown here on the slide located at the bottom of the toolbar. Next slide, please. So I'm Molly Jones. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Princeton. I'm coming to you now from my home. We're going to hear shortly from Wayne DeFeo, our topic expert, and I'll share with you his bio in a moment. And then our moderators are Sustainable Princeton staff, Jenny Ludmer and Christine Symington. They'll be helping us with questions today. Next slide, please. So first, we really wanted to set the stage here for you because recycling is such a big topic here in our community. So we really wanted to give you an eye as to how important it really is. As you can see, on average, New Jersey residents are increasing their volume of waste. An outstanding average of 4,500 pounds of solid waste per person is the typical average here in New Jersey. Next slide, please. So as we're talking about waste, we always want to set the context of the bigger picture. And so I want to mention the Princeton Climate Action Plan, which Sustainable Princeton helped the community put together. So, you know, all of these efforts are here to help support our goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So we just wanted to give you a bit of context of how our waste fits within our emissions goals. What you're seeing here on this slide is our current emissions indicated in the blue portion of the graph, and then our goals for the Climate Action Plan. This is what it's going to take to help us arrive at an 80% reduction of our 2010 emissions by the year 2050. Next slide, please. So within the Climate Action Plan, all waste falls within the category of materials management. You know, when we think about what it is that we're throwing out, we always have to think of the full life cycle of those products. And so that is very much what our working group of the materials management did when it came up with strategies to propose how we reduce our emissions relative, excuse me, to our waste material. Next slide, please. Sorry. So our when we look at our greenhouse gas inventory for the Princeton community, this is what it looks like. And you can see solid waste, which is what we're talking about today, is this little purple sliver. So the actual, when you're looking at our overall emissions here in the community, the portion that our waste contributes is relatively small compared to our transportation and then energy footprint. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about waste, and our expert's going to get into this surely in a great deal of detail, one of the most important things is thinking about the first step that we can always take to reducing waste is by reducing what we purchase, the largest orange band here on this diagram. So we reduce, we reuse, then we get down to what we're going to be talking about today, recycling, composting, and then what else can be happening with those materials. So just want to touch on that to set the context. Okay, next slide. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to move on to our next poll question. Christine, if you could please bring it up. What is the largest source of waste that we can send to that we are sending to our landfill? You're going to have, let's say, 20 seconds to fill this out. Okay, Christine, what are our answers? What do folks think?
Oh, good.
There we go. Okay, so we have a good number of guesses for food waste. 23% are guessing paper, yard waste, wood, textiles. Okay, so let me show you the next slide so you can see the actual answers. I think you had good guesses there. Oh, you're gonna have to close the poll there, Christine, I think. Excellent. Look, so many of you, 47%, were correct that food waste was a large chunk. A lot of folks got paper as well. Plastics is another leading contributor, and you can see on down the chain of where the rest of items fall. This is from a waste audit conducted by Mercer County back in 2013. So this really shows you what's going to our landfill. Okay, so with that, I would like to introduce our speaker of the day. Wayne DeFeo is the principal and founder of DeFeo Associates. Here in New Jersey, when you start talking about recycling, Wayne's name often comes up. Wayne has been in green consulting for over 25 years. He's shown many clients how sustainability has evolved from admirable but practical efforts to streamline cost-effective conservation strategies and technologies. Wayne currently serves on the board of directors of the Association of New Jersey Recyclers, the board of directors of the Recycling Certification Institute, as well as the Somerset County, New Jersey Energy Council. Wayne is recognized as a leader in the recycling industry and has received special recognition from NJDEP for his contributions to recycling, and currently serves as the faculty coordinator for Rutgers University School of Continuing and Professional Education. Wayne has developed courses in recycling contract writing and has been a course instructor in New Jersey's Recycling Coordinator Certification Program for many years. So without further ado, I'll hand this over to Wayne. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I see already we have questions coming up on the screen, and I will try to answer all of them. The first thing I want to point out to you is that right now, we are obviously, let me state the obvious, we are in unprecedented times. Solid waste generation is going up from a residential standpoint. Obviously, it has dropped commercially and industrially. That's just common sense. Commercial businesses are closed. The things I want to stress to you today are both solid waste and recycling. And I want you to do two things for me if you do nothing else today. One, when we talk about recycling, I never want to hear the word garbage or solid waste and recycling in the same sentence for the same material. And two, when you think about solid waste, I want you to think that all solid waste is simply a misplaced resource. If you can think of those two things as you move forward, you'll have a better understanding of what I want to cover today. And looking up here, I like the first question. I'm going to skip these in order. They're not going to be answered in order. I just like the question, is it okay to let groundhogs raid our backyard compost heap?
Right, you might not be addressing that one today, Wayne, I can imagine. Maybe we'll just start with the first recycling one, though. Does that sound okay?
We can take them whatever order you want. The first
I'll
question
go
is
ahead
how
and
much.
do it in the order that they came
Okay.
in, I think.
First question is how much of Princeton's plastic recycling, can you all see the questions? Can everybody see the questions?
No, I don't think they can until we've answered them. So why don't I read them out, and then you can definitely be thinking about the answer. Does that
Go right ahead
okay?
and start with Anthony Lynn's question.
Yes, perfectly. So Anthony is asking how much of Princeton's plastic recycling actually gets recycled at the moment. He adds, why can't we include all number 1 and 2 items? Mercer County says we're only supposed to put in narrow neck bottles, which leaves out berry containers, supermarket trays, and other perfectly fine items.
Anthony, there are several parts to the answer. First is that number 1 and number 2, which is what you were focusing on in Mercer County, are the single most recyclable of the plastics. Number 1 is PET and narrow neck bottles. And for those who already know this, forgive the redundancy, are going to be your water bottles, your soda bottles, some liquor bottles, juice bottles, etc. Number 2 is typically milk bottles, detergent bottles, and that sort of thing. The difference is in the way the plastics are made. And the reason that they only want narrow neck bottles is because, number 1, PET water bottles, let's just use water bottles as an example, are blow molded. And what that means is they take molten plastic, inject air into a form, and it creates a bottle. Number 2 bottles are the same thing. You inject, you blow into a form. This is going to be Chemistry 101, so if you're all chemists, this will be a piece of cake. If you don't remember chemistry, it's okay. Berry containers that you're talking about, like your blueberries and strawberries and so forth, food containers that you can get where you're pre-packaged foods, are injection molded. They are the same plastics, the same chemical, but made in a different way, and they have different physical properties. And because the properties that are physical are different, they cannot be easily separated. And you don't want to mix an injection molded plastic with a blow molded plastic when you're flaking them to make something new, because they aren't compatible. Now, how you're supposed to know that without being in the industry is kind of ridiculous, but that's the answer. The second part of your answer, or the second part of the answer to your question, is when you buy a food tray or any plastic that comes, you'll see that some of them come in different colors. And a lot of the food trays are black. The problem is that today we are optically sorting plastics, most places today. And what that means is you use infrared light. And before we are done today, one of the things I'd like to do is I'll pull up a video of a recycling plant that shows you exactly how your materials are sorted for almost everywhere, and it will help reinforce this answer. But when I recycle plastic, I use an optical sorter, or the facility does. And what an optical sorter does, it relies on light. It bounces a beam of light against the plastic, the beam of light comes back, the computer says this plastic is number 1, based on chemistry, light chemistry. The one thing you may remember from school is black is the absence of all color. So when light hits black plastic, it's totally absorbed, nothing bounces back, and the computer can't tell what it is. Accordingly, then what happens, which goes to the first part of your question, if you are putting all of these different plastics into your bin, except for what you're being asked to put in, then the percentage of what gets recycled is directly proportional to the percentage of everything else you're putting in. If 20% of the plastic you put in it is following the rules, number 1 and number 2, bottles, then 20% of your plastic is being recycled and the rest is going out as garbage. The discrepancy between all of these types of plastics, and there are 7 codes to plastic that you will see typically as a consumer. 1 and 2 we just talked about. 3 is vinyl, not much to worry about and stuff you're going to normally get in that. 4 is typically plastic bags. It's called low density. 5 is the other commonly recycled plastic. It's called polypropylene. It's what your yogurt cups will be as a rule if you're buying yogurt. 6 is polystyrene. We never want to see polystyrene. You should not be using polystyrene for anything. You just read probably in the paper of the release of styrene in India that killed all those people. That's what polystyrene is. That's being used to make polystyrene. Not a very good product. And 7 is a combination of all others. Anyone have a water bottle, reusable water bottle? As a coffee mug, but anyone has a reusable water bottle on their desk that you use all the time to reduce? That is probably a number 7. All of these other items, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are difficult to separate and difficult to recycle. And all of this mix of plastics is the reason China has closed its doors to what we were sending. When China needed all the raw materials, and China and Asia in general, they were taking 1 to 7 plastic, but only recycling the ones that could be recycled. And all we were really doing was shipping our garbage to China. Good intentions, but it didn't work. And in the end, 25% maybe of that plastic was being recycled. The rest was going into an open pit, literally. China typically did not have landfills like we do. So to answer your question, they are perfectly fine items, except for the fact that we can't do anything with them in a current market. The secondary problem is right now is that plastic has very low value because the price of oil and natural gas has gone down. Remember I said, don't think of anything as garbage that's recycling. Recycling is a raw material. It is a commodity. You've heard of soybean futures and oil futures and this future, pork belly futures. Well, there are paper futures and plastic futures and aluminum futures. Recyclable materials are a commodity. As the price of oil has dropped, the value of recycled plastic has dropped. We don't have a national mandate that says you must use post-consumer recycled material in your product. If we did, we would have a forced demand for those materials. But plastic, for example, I think polypropylene, I just saw in a quote yesterday, is down to 3 cents a pound in value. At its peak, it was probably worth 20 cents a pound. Remember, there's a cost to separate all these things. And if the cost to separate it, because you're putting it all in one bin, if the cost to separate it is greater than the value of the commodity, that's not sustainable economically. And you're talking about sustainable Princeton. I'm sure you all are aware, and I'm sure it's been discussed many times, one of the components of the 3 legs of sustainability is economic sustainability. If I lose money on every ton of plastic that I'm recycling, I can't make that up in volume. It just means I keep losing more and more money.
Right. So it sounds like you're making a very strong point that everyone needs to adhere to the rules in their curbside. Otherwise, they're just driving up the cost of recycling.
You absolutely are.
Even if the rules to them don't make sense.
Yeah, you're absolutely driving up the cost. You're reducing the ability to get the material recycled. And you might say, well, I have a friend who lives in so-and-so in New Jersey, and they can put number 1 and 2 containers, food containers, and number 5 in. That could be true because the different markets that exist and the different facilities that process, some can take the food containers and process them and sort them. And they have markets for them. Many don't. Some can take multiple types of plastics. They can take 1, 2, they can take 5, and they can take 7 and find a market. But not everyone can. So whatever your local program is, and in your case, it's Mercer County's program, whatever Mercer County has been able to secure as a market, you must, and you said it perfectly. Jenny, you said exactly what I would say. You must adhere to the program. Every time you put something that is incorrect, that your program cannot recycle, into the bin, you've helped destroy the economics of your program.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to another question related to this from Mr. Nimgongkar. At this time, how can we recycle number 5 and above plastic? So you just pointed out that they're not commonly in curbside recycling. Are there other resources?
The short answer is no, not easily. Back to Christine put up that reverse hierarchy for you that says reduce is the first thing. And that's still your first best goal. You could, for 5 and above, so let's take 5 and above. You have 5 is polypropylene. I'll discuss that separately. 6 and 7. 7 will work backwards. 7 is other. What other means from a technical standpoint is that it's comprised of multiple layers of different plastics. So typically, usually, now if you have one of those water bottles that's really hard and rigid, almost like it looks almost like glass, that's polycarbonate. Polycarbonate is its own plastic. But if you have almost anything else that's a 7, so for example, here, all right, this is bad, don't yell at me, but I like them, so I bought them. All right, now if you're, nuts in a bag, you buy nuts today, for the most part, they're coming in a bag like this, right? This bag is a number 7 plastic. And what that means is that there is a layer of one kind of plastic outside, and in between the inside and the outside is another plastic, and that's sandwiched to another one inside. And the logic of that from a packaging standpoint is it keeps gas out and doesn't let air in. It doesn't let fumes from in here get out, and therefore it preserves the product for a long period of time. But this, how do I take it apart? Well, typically when I recycle plastic, I shred it and I float it in water because the densities I use like a swimming pool skimmer to separate the plastic. The problem is when I shred this, I'm shredding multiple layers of plastic that can't be taken apart. So the key is try not to buy them. Now, I can't find another alternative to this particular thing. And when I do, I buy it. I'll buy it in glass. These are nuts, just for what it's worth. The counter question is, the counter statement that someone will make, because I'll get this question sooner or later, I might as well answer it now. Form, in one way of thinking, that's source reduction. Because from a climate change standpoint, I'm shipping 99% product weight and a very low percentage of packaging weight. So from a climate standpoint, the argument would be it's more efficient because I'm moving more product with less fuel. This all gets very synergistic. If you lived in Gloucester County or Camden County or Essex County or Union County, and you threw that bag into the garbage, regular garbage, because I can't recycle it, then that bag would go to a resource recovery plant and be recovered as fuel, since it's made mostly from petroleum and natural gas. And therefore, you wouldn't have to worry about its form of recycling. You could be opposed to resource recovery. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying that is one of the arguments. This kind of packaging actually started in Europe because they wanted volume reduction, which we'll get to. At a landfill, your issue isn't weight, it's volume. Mm-hmm. And Europe uses resource recovery almost exclusively for the disposal of solid waste. This was deemed more efficient. Now, let me end on a positive note. I recently, before all this mess that we're living in and therefore working from home started, I was asked to go to a company that's in New Jersey that makes these bags. And they wanted to be more sustainable. Small business. they have developed a compostable form of this bag that would be industrially compostable. Different issue, but they are trying to figure out a way to not make as much solid waste. As far as number 6, polystyrene, now there are all forms of polystyrene. There's expanded, which is what you would see as perhaps an egg carton that's styrofoam. The thing you call styrofoam is actually a product name. So there's expanded polystyrene, which is what your coolers would be, that your disposable coolers people bring to the beach. Some food comes in that, some meat comes in that at a butcher shop. And then there's rigid polystyrene. So when you get your food at takeout, if you do takeout, you'll get that nice clear clamshell box that you were just talking about. Many places have started using number 1 or number 5 or number 2 clamshell, but number 6 polystyrene looks just like number 1. That's a rigid polystyrene. I personally would not eat out of polystyrene at all. There are studies that say it's safe, and there are studies that say styrene leaches into your food. We don't know the long-term effect of styrene on our health. Maybe it will just be preserved. I don't know. But you need to be cognizant. There's no market, and that's my fundamental point in that long statement. That number 6 polystyrene, Middletown, New Jersey takes expanded polystyrene and puts it in a densifier for recycling that goes into making things like room trim, the fake trim, or picture frames. Sussex County does that. So there is a market for the expanded, but there's no way to get it there cost effectively. So let's say Princeton wanted to put one of those densifiers in at its convenience center for everybody you could. It'll cost you $60,000 to put it in, and then you have to pay to run it. You're not going to get your money back.
Yes, and we've definitely looked at that here in Princeton. We have done some expanded styrofoam collections, and right, I think you've done a good job of pointing out all the intricacies and complexities with any of this.
So, and that's why you can't recycle. So what's your option for number 5, 6, or 7? I've already given you 6 and 7. 5, talk to Mercer County and see if they can find a market that'll take number 5.
Okay, there you go. All right, well, let's switch gears away from plastic. We have a question from Mr. Jones, which is, how are juice and soy milk boxes recycled?
Yeah, aseptic, what we call aseptic packaging. You can buy soup in that, you can buy milk in that, you can buy juicy, what do they call this? Juice boxes, right? Juice boxes in that. I don't see anyone using a sippy box of the 4 of us here, so that's good. The simple fact is that they can be recycled if the materials recovery facility, the IPF, the processing plant, has the ability to separate them. And the way they're recycled, again, they are a multi-layered package. So on the outside, you have mostly paper. On the outside of the paper is a thin coat of plastic. Inside, there are 2 more layers of material. What happens to those is they get separated at a plant, typically again with an optical sorter. They are shipped as bales to a processing facility where the demanufacturing process, which is what all recycling is, shreds them and separates out the different materials, using typically water, floating and sinking. And then each of the individual components are sent back to their relative markets. So paper, the pulp for the paper can be recycled. Much of the plastic they can use in the system. That's how they're recycled today. A lot of places don't accept them. Some do. What's called the if you want more information, look up the Carton Council. They are writing grants to many towns, counties, I should say, to put in these facilities to sort them. The problem is the price. Right now, that's worth about $0.05 a pound. You cannot sort the carton, even with an optical sorter, for $0.05 a pound.
Okay.
So where do you get the...
Right. Yeah.
But they were developed in Europe because, again, you're shipping product, not packaging by weight.
Okay. All right, so we have another question about paper from Alexandra, and this says, for paper recycling, is it true that if materials left in the buckets get wet, they will not be recycled?
That's a good question. The answer is yes and no. The fact is, when paper is wet today, it has very little value. It has no value. So wet paper that's collected, if it's all wet, paper that's collected, and again, when I show you this video, it'll really help you. The paper is baled together into a giant bale, and that bale is shipped. So what happens now, if it's going to be shipped to China or Asia, China and Asia are still accepting some materials. What they have done is said a bale of paper must be 99.5% pure paper. That's an extraordinarily high bar to reach. If that paper has more than 5% moisture, they'll reject it. So the short answer is yes and no. What happens, however, let's say your bucket gets wet, you put it out in the rain, but you have no choice, you have a day to collect. As long as the aggregate of all the paper the facility is baling can fall below that, you're okay. And what has happened in a number of communities is they have gone to cart systems, like you have for garbage in many places, like you had for your organics. And that helps because now you have a lid on the paper and the paper no longer gets wet. So mostly when I'm working with communities, I am encouraging them to switch to the cart collection system model. Those that don't have moisture problems. So yes, when paper gets wet, it has no value if it exceeds 5%.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see, we have another question from Heidi. It says, I am not sure the LaCroix cardboard carton is okay to put in our Mercer County recycling bin.
Can you tell me what a LaCroix cardboard carton is?
Yeah, I am not familiar with that myself, but could we just have a general statement that this would be a specific question to Mercer County rather than something you could answer generally?
If I knew what it was, I could answer it.
Wayne, can I chime in here real quick?
Sure.
A LaCroix carton is the exterior carton that holds cans of like sparkling water. So it's just like the exterior cardboard around cans, the aluminum that holds the aluminum cans when you buy cans.
Oh, okay. Well, the short answer is if it's corrugated cardboard, thank you, Mark. If it's corrugated cardboard, the answer is it's recyclable. If it has plastic wrap, when I'm guessing what's happening, you have your 24 cans in here, and there's a shrink wrap over that that's holding the cans into the box. The problem is when people put the shrink wrap and the cardboard together in the cardboard bin, they've contaminated the cardboard. If you take the plastic off and it's just cardboard, it's fully recyclable. And let me give you the simplest rule for all cardboard. If it is a cardboard box, OCC, old corrugated cardboard is the technical term, and it's not covered in plastic, it can be recycled. Essentially, the only cardboard you don't recycle is if it goes in your freezer. If it's a freezer, but that's chipboard, like a cereal box, but if it's chipboard like that, and it is for the freezer, it's heavily coated in plastic, which is why it's shiny, and therefore that cannot be recycled. All other corrugated can be recycled together, whether it's what you'd consider standard dark brown cardboard that you're used to, or if it's sort of a yellowish tinge. Many times if you receive shipments from China directly, they call it rice paper because it uses rice husks in it. That can still go in because it's a lower quality, but there is so little of it compared to the big amount you're fine. So the LaCroix box, take the plastic off, and any other box you receive, if it has styrofoam in it, get rid of that. But the box itself is recyclable. Thanks, Ma. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, and thank you. So other boxes that aren't corrugated cardboard, like a cereal box, but they are still okay? Okay.
That's typically acceptable in what's called mixed paper. You have to look at Mercer County's program particularly, and I can do that before we end. But in every program is different. So that's deemed mixed paper. Chipboard is the low quality material that's made from a mix of some cardboard and cereal boxes to make a cereal box. And if you look at the inside of a cereal box, almost all of them are made with recycled paper, which is a good thing. If you look at the inside of a cereal box, you'll see it's gray. And it's gray because they don't wash everything out of it. They try to do the least. The outside is printed, the inside is left gray the ink is left in from the newspaper. So you can recycle both if your program says that I can recycle chipboard. And let me look up here. Bear with me 1 second. While we're chatting, I'll look this up. And I can't believe they don't take chipboard in your county. I'd be shocked. All right, so you take mixed paper. So your chipboard, your cereal boxes, goes in with your mixed paper. Okay? You can put in juice, beverage, or cartons, that's fine. And we talked about your plastics, so that's fine. Corrugated is fine. Yeah, so that's where it is. It's going in with your chipboard. It's going in with your mixed paper.
Okay, thanks. There was a follow-up question to this. Susan is asking, does that mean the juice cartons with plastic pouring part needs to have the plastic part removed before recycling? You know what?
Yeah. I should go get a sippy button. No, I guess I'm too old for this. The short answer is no, you don't need to do that. If you want to do that, you just make it easier. But the process was designed with that still being there. So you have a soup carton, broth carton, right? And you pour it out, and it's got the little flip lid on it. The system was designed to handle that because you really can't easily take that thing apart. But don't worry about that.
Good. Okay. Good to know. Okay, we have another question from Sophie, and that is, what are the proven strategies for reducing contamination in recycling? This is a great one.
Education, 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 education. When education fails on the positive reinforcement, monetary fines are very effective. I'll give you an example in Nutley, New Jersey, where they collect what's called dual stream, your cans and bottles over here and your corrugated and paper over here. Their paper stream is so clean, because it improved the quality, that it goes directly to a mill. So it gets picked up, taken to a facility, put in a bale, and shipped right to a paper mill with no additional cleaning necessary. The reason they accomplished that is they started a program and said, all right, first we're going to educate, tell people why you should do it this way. And they gave people a month, and then they started writing summonses. And to the elected official's credit, who was in charge of that department, he said he would take the calls. And he got them, as you can imagine. And he was running for office that year. And he was reelected. But after a few fines, people started putting it out correctly. And education is the key. That's the only way to reduce contamination. Mercer County gives you good education. I just looked it up. Plenty of pictures, very clear cut. Call the office if you don't know. Educate your neighbors. Do it in a friendly way, obviously, from at least 6 feet apart, wearing a mask. Talk to Sustainable Princeton. I mean, you guys have education materials up online. But yes, without education, there is no proven strategy. What we're talking about here is community-based social marketing is the big fancy term. My mother used a wooden spoon to accomplish it. It was called behavior modification. And she was very effective with a wooden spoon to accomplish behavior modification. You can't do that publicly, but it did get the point across.
Right. Okay, we still have a lot of questions, so I'll try to move through them quickly. Scott is asking, should cans and bottles be picked up on should cans and bottles that are picked up on roadsides be added to recycle bins? Sorry, I think it got flipped. Okay, so even if they're muddy, dirty, or broken?
No. The short answer is if you're going to bother to pick up a bottle on the side of the road, let's talk about glass bottles. Glass bottles, just rinse them off and put them in. Yes, that can be recycled. Aluminum cans, just, if you would just rinse them with a hose or something and throw it in, that's fine. Plastic bottles are a tough one because the dirtier it's been out there, let's say the plastic bottle, it's a water bottle, it's caked in mud, you throw it in your bin. That caked in mud will stop the optical sorter it won't know what to read. It can't get through. Either clean it and put it in, that's fine. The secondary problem with plastic in particular, when you find it on the side of the road, is how long has it been there? Within 30 days, plastic starts to chemically break down, and it has no value at that point. So unfortunately, the best thing about litter is don't do it. That's the only way to really deal with it. But aluminum and tin cans and glass bottles, if you just get the basic caking off it, yeah, you could put those in. They'd be fine.
Okay, great. So wash them if you can. And then William is asking a question. My understanding is that most of our recycling went overseas, but currently it's not being shipped overseas. Is this the truth? And so what happens to our recycling?
It's also a good question. The answer is a lot of our recycling gets shipped overseas. Mostly our fiber, our paper, has always been shipped. And even today, most of it is still shipped overseas. Again, if it meets the cleanliness standard. Our plastic that we collect, our number 1 and number 2 plastic, believe it or not, from New Jersey, is mostly domestically consumed. It's sent to Canada and all up and down the East Coast. So in New Jersey, in the Northeast, most of our plastic is staying domestic. Glass stays domestic for what little recycling there is. Aluminum stays mostly domestic. And our steel food cans stay mostly domestic. It's fiber that's mostly gone overseas. So what is happening today, it's law of supply and demand. It's actually kind of interesting. With China cutting back on what they'll take in the way, especially contaminated material, Chinese companies, they still need the pulp. So what they're doing is buying pulping mills in the United States that have been out of business and starting them up again, creating markets for paper pulp in New Jersey, or in the United States, sorry. And what that means is the paper will be collected, shipped to a pulping mill in the United States, and then the pulp, which is now clean, goes to China. What's also happening is paper mills are starting to be designed for reopening within the United States because of the trade war and because of everything else that's going on. These same companies, as well as US companies, are realizing, okay, now it might be economically viable to reopen a paper mill. You may have read that Marcal, which if you've used Marcal toilet tissue or Marcal wax paper or anything like that, had their plant in New Jersey burned down last year, a little over a year ago. That plant actually reopened in New Jersey, which anyone in the recycling field in New Jersey would have said, won't happen. The land's too valuable as condominiums, and there's no way in heck where it's placed right on a river like that it's going to be. And they reopened, and they're running at full capacity again, or darn near. My point in that is it's a great thing. What we're seeing is capacity for fiber coming back to the United States or for pulping in the last year. But it takes 5 years to get this thing started. So that's what's happening right now.
Super. Okay, we have 2 questions about envelopes. Linda is asking, are the windows recyclable? And with paper. And then the other one, if I could find it quickly, is so much of the junk mail, Heidi's asking, it seems so much of the junk mail I get has a surface sheen. Is this a plastic coating? And if so, does this contribute to the microplastics problem?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's go to the first question. The first question, the windowed envelopes. Now, if you have absolutely nothing better to do with your time, you are certainly free to take those little windows out. Leaving them in has no impact on the recycling, because when paper is pulped, it is literally, you probably all made paper as a kid sometime or another in some craft course or something. It's not much different to do it industrially, except it's on a giant scale. And what happens is all that paper is pulped in with water, and anything that's a contaminant is going to be skimmed off and then sent to landfill or to incineration. So the windows don't matter. To your second question, the sheen that is typically on a magazine, let's say, or a catalog. I mean, people like that sheen because it gives it gloss, and glossy paper looks better, and it's all marketing 101. You're going to need to look at glossy paper first, right? The answer is that's typically a clay coating, and it's designed to make it glossy, so it's not a problem, typically, in that regard. Okay. Don't burn it, by the way. If you have a fireplace, please remember, do not burn glossy paper or colored paper in your fireplace, color inks, because they do contain heavy metals.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you. Let's see, William, nope, I'm gonna actually hold off on that. We do have several composting questions, and I think we'll just hold those to the end and focus on the recycling ones.
Sure.
So Bob Schwartz is asking, should we wash certain kinds of plastics before we recycle them. And you did start to address that with the super dirty stuff. So what about just in your home? After you finish a jar of spaghetti, what do you do with that?
Say that one more time.
So am I
don't see the
supposed to
question.
wash recyclables before I put them in the bin?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That comes down mostly to what I call common courtesy. No matter what kind of facility I'm processing at, anyone's processing your materials at, people at some point are the quality control mechanism. And so rinsing it is always asked. It just because, you know, especially in July and August, you get the situation where it's coming down the line and you've not done anything with it. It's been sitting at your curb for 2 weeks or sitting in your can for 2 weeks outside. It's 100 degrees. It's a mayonnaise jar. You want to know what that's going to smell like? All right. And you're the person on the line for 7 hours trying to pick this stuff off. And it's really a matter of courtesy. So you don't have to sterilize it. You don't need to brush clean it. Get the material out. That's all. You don't need to dishwash it. But when it's left in its raw form, it, number one, makes a mess of the plant. Think about it. A jar of tomato paste is coming down the line. It cracks, which is likely to happen to all glass. Now it's all over the darn place. It makes the plant dirtier. It smells. It brings in vermin. And years ago, I can remember being in a plant where maggots crawled out of the jar. I mean, do you want to be the person sorting it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really just comes
No,
down to
that's
common courtesy.
Yes.
So rinsing,
Okay, so a heavy
sterilize.
rinse. A similar question related to the jar. Kina is asking about lids. Should we separate lids from bottles or jars?
You have single stream recycling in Mercer County, correct? Meaning
Yeah.
cans, bottles, and paper all in one container?
Yes.
Okay, so the short answer is then lids should go in the garbage. Because, as we'll, again, when I show you the video, we'll show you, by the way, it's a 3-minute video, so it'll be fine. Recycling plants that are highly automated use what's called a 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional sorting system. And what that means is things like cardboard and paper are deemed 2-dimensional. And the first sort in most automated plants is to get rid of the flat stuff. Paper has to be highly pure. Paper is the 2-dimensional stuff. When you put 2-dimensional plastic or 2-dimensional lids in it, so say you get, you buy one of those lettuces that comes in the big, you know, in the plastic container and it has a zip lid, and the lid is the same plastic, it's number one, but it's like this, that is going to go out with the paper because the machine can't do anything about it. So anything, the rule that we normally say is if you're in a single stream system and the item is less than 2 inches thick, it should go in the garbage. No matter what it is, even if it's a recyclable plastic or metal or paper. Usually that is the recommendation. Because the real heart of this is, if you're not sure it can be recycled, throw it in the garbage. Much as we hate to throw things in the garbage, the thing that's messed up recycling the most is that we put too much of it in the recycling and it ends up in the garbage anyway. Because the machinery can't sort it. Maybe someday, but not right now.
Okay, super. So another question. There were 2 people that asked about glass. One question in particular from Scott is he's wondering, should he be purchasing glass bottles or aluminum cans if you're thinking in terms of recyclability?
That's a great, it's a really, really good question. There's no way. Have you ever seen a beer commercial where they're advertising beer in an aluminum can? No. Why? Because glass is what we think. Even Coca-Cola. Do you see Coca-Cola in plastic bottle? No, you see a Coca-Cola bottle because that's what looks good coming out of the cooler at the picnic, right? Environmentally, there is good and bad news on the glass front. The bad news is every glass plant in New Jersey, save 2, has closed. At one time, we had 24 plants making glass bottles in New Jersey. We have 2 small plants that make special glass. So there really is not a big market for glass. And there are 2 reasons there's not a big market for glass. One is it's not a rare commodity. It's basically sand. Easy to come by. It's why, by the way, we had glass plants in New Jersey. We had lots of sand. The second is that when we do ship it for market, the problem is that it's heavy. And you can't ship it long distances in a cost-effective manner. That's the bad news. The good news is we have three new glass markets have opened up in New Jersey. Oh, actually 2 in New Jersey, 1 in Philadelphia. One is called Aero Glass, and it takes all the glass from, in this case, 1 county in New Jersey, those glass bottles you're worried about, no matter the color, and it basically melts it like a volcano and then turns it into aggregate for road base, sub base, where you need drainage. That's a great use for recycled glass because now I don't have to quarry rock, and simultaneously I have a market for my glass. So there are new markets for glass. A second facility is in Jersey City that can literally take any mix of colors you want of glass, all broken up, disgusting looking. They take all of New York City's, for example, and it sorts it to pristine piles of different colors. And it does it with 2 people. It's all done by optical sorters and machinery. So the markets for glass are improving. The short answer to your question then is aluminum is clearly the more recyclable product. There are always markets for the aluminum can. If your concern is, will it absolutely be recycled no matter what, use aluminum cans. If you're worried about glass, even if glass is not recycled, the worst case scenario is it's crushed and put in a landfill where it's inert. It's sand, not going to hurt anything. It is still disposed of, but where it can be recycled, let's just tell you what it's made into. I've talked about the aggregate. I've talked about glass bottles. If you buy fiberglass insulation, it's about 25–30% recycled glass bottles. So, absolute guarantee it'll be recycled, aluminum can.
Okay, super. Let's see. So can we, Peter is asking a question about how we have in Mercer County single stream recycling.
Yes.
And so he's asking, why not let us go back to sorting and have a can with paper and another with glass and another with plastic? Can you comment on that?
Because the person who suggests that would be beaten with a stick from most other residents in the county. It is certainly the better way to go. We are seeing communities go back to dual stream at least. When I started doing this, and I hate to say how many years ago, but when I took over a program, it was just the way you described it. We had glass separated by color. You put aluminum over here, tin over here, newspaper over here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I forget how many sorts we totally had, probably about 9. And the first thing we did was go to dual stream because we said people like convenience, let's at least make it so people can have, actually we did 3 streams, corrugated, paper, and then cans and bottles. As the technology evolved, it was easy to sort the cans and bottles. In some parts of the world, they do exactly what you suggest. In Asia, for example, it's not uncommon, Japan, Taiwan, that they actually, the residents or Korea, they'll sort 22 different 22 different sorts at home. Actually have 22 different containers at the curb. So your household batteries go in one, your newspapers go in another, this over here, exactly as you're describing. And they have no problem with it whatsoever, but it's a cultural difference. It's what they were raised to do. I think what you would see practically is going back to dual stream, and we do encourage that wherever possible. We also are telling people, towns in particular, if you are dual stream, do not change. Dual stream is easy to sort, believe it or not. That statement I made earlier about the flat, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, if you're dual stream, that's no longer an issue. Those lids could all go in. Because on dual stream, all the cans and bottles are going through a whole different sorting process. We were sold, we, the country, whomever, was sold this great, let's make it convenient, let's make it easy, let's go single stream. It's not working out. Hoboken is the largest community I know of in New Jersey that shifted back to dual stream. I don't know how it's working because it kind of hit simultaneously to this COVID epidemic or pandemic. So I'm not sure how well it's worked, but conceptually towns are looking at doing that. So I would tell you, if you wanted Mercer County to consider something, consider going back to dual stream.
Okay, great. So we still have about a dozen questions. Christine or Molly, are we wrapping things up within 3 minutes?
I'm all right if you're all right. So you do what you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you have enough time for maybe another 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll show you a video after that.
I'm fine with whatever you need. I'll do.
Okay,
Oh,
maybe
that's
Jenny,
wonderful.
you can get them rapid fire out there.
Yeah, let's do that. So we've got one from Scott. Why aren't aluminum Pi 10 pins recyclable? Pi 10s, sorry, recyclable if aluminum cans are?
Because it's the same argument against aluminum is not aluminum, but it's all aluminum. They're all different alloys of aluminum. So an aluminum pie tin is a different alloy because it's made from different things than an aluminum can. They are technically recyclable. I won't say technically that's correct, but you have to have the market. So when you put it into the plant, plants here in this area are not designed to sort that aluminum pie tin from the aluminum can. Aluminum foil is the same problem. In some plants in Jersey City, there's a plant run by a large company called Sims, which is a metals company. They'll take all that because that's what they do. But most cases, the value of that pie tin is so low, it's not worth sorting for the plant's purposes. But that's why the alloy is different. The same reason you can't put aluminum windows in and you can't put aluminum siding in.
Okay, that does it. So hardcover books, Susan saying she's seeing conflicting information. Can they be recycled?
Your county takes them if you take the covers and the spines off.
Right.
You rip all the pages out individually of that hardcover book and just put the paper in, you're fine. The problem with hardcover books is the glues and the binding. It's not even the cover itself per se, it's the glue and the binding. So if you just individually tear the pages out, if you're willing to do that, then you'd be fine. The paper can go in.
Great. So Lynn is asking, when is glass too oily or greasy to recycle? Does that happen?
No, not with glass. Again, it makes a mess of the plant. But glass hits a furnace, and if it's oily, all the oil is going to do is burn. It's not really a problem. It's just a function of courtesy to the person collecting it.
Okay, good. What about broken glass? Can you put
Do
that?
not put broken glass into your system. The single stream system cannot handle that well. And what happens is that broken glass bottle will do two things. One, you're going to risk hurting the person picking it up because he's got to deal with broken glass he's not prepared for. Two, it's going to hit the plant, and because it's broken already, it's going to go into the paper as a two-dimensional item, and it's going to destroy the value of the paper. No, broken glass, you drop the bottle because you've had too much the night before of wine. Unfortunately, that has to go in the garbage.
Right, okay, and then, but colored glass is acceptable.
Colored meaning, you have brown bottles, green bottles, and clear bottles, all different colors of food grade glass is all recyclable.
Okay, great.
But do not put glasses that you drink from, do not put window glass, do not put ceramics, nothing like that in it at all. And if I said paper had a strong, where there is a recycling market for glass, and paper is very dense, but where there's a market for glass, you put one piece of ceramic in a ton of glass and you can destroy the entire run of a ton of glass.
Wow. Okay. What about squashing an item? There was one time when everybody was told they're supposed to squash aluminum cans.
Don't do that.
State?
Especially not in single stream. It goes back to my two-dimensional, three-dimensional sort.
Okay. So it's just don't do it. Great. So we have some more kind of deeper thought type of questions.
I'll try to think.
Yeah,
but I'll try.
See if you can. Mr. Lunn asked, to make recycling work, we need laws. We need to compel a minimum % recyclable content. We need to give credit or some other subsidy to manufacturers to make it economically viable and to address the true societal costs, to reduce the complexity by requiring containers to be made from, say, number 2 and not number 6. And so on. So what's happening in this realm in our country to just streamline the process and make it work better?
Well, now, under this administration, let's not get into politics, but nothing. That's an easy answer. Yes, your statement is right. And what you're really alluding to is a thing called extended producer responsibility, EPR. And what that does, and in Europe, this is more common than here, and in Canada, this is more common than here. What that says is if you make something as a product, a container, then you're responsible for it. and it's end of life. And if you have an end of life where you make a single serve item and it can't be recycled, we're going to tax you at a much higher rate to take the societal charges, the societal impacts into account and make it cost ineffective for you to make that product. Yes, that's what we need. This country has never been good nationally on that kind of a thing. We just don't do it well. Individual states can do it in some respects. Let's take, for example, in New Jersey, New York, and some other states, but New Jersey passed an Electronics Recycling Act. That is effectively a producer responsibility act because it says if you make certain electronics, computers, copiers, TVs, monitors, laptops, etc., you must accept back at no cost to the consumer, additional cost, those items to be recycled. And if you don't meet a minimum threshold of collection and recycling of those electronics, New Jersey actually has the power to do two things: assess a very high fee against every ton you don't recycle, or ban the sale of the product within the state. Now, no manufacturer wants either of those. And the good news is, in the last 2 years, the manufacturers have met their required recycling tonnage. And that tonnage is established by the state and done very, very well, to the state's credit. That law took 2 shots to pass and modify to make extended producer responsibility, and the industry fought it tooth and nail.
Great.
Now, I'm going to challenge the number of people on this call and say, are all of you, for example, all of you have a printer in your house, I'm sure, somewhere. Are you all buying post-consumer recycled paper? And if you're not, then you shouldn't be complaining about industry.
That's a really good point. Thank you. So a similar deep question.
Go ahead.
From Will, the recycling process is opaque. It's a black box. As an alternative to fines, could Princeton get feedback about how we're doing with monthly or weekly statistics? If so, could we publish trends in our local news sources to reinforce our progress? Have you seen that sort of thing happening
Sure.
in New Jersey?
Yeah, that's done in other communities. There's no reason Princeton couldn't do that. I mean, Mercer County would know, since it does the collection for you, exactly the tonnage of material that's collected from Princeton. So they would be able to give you the gross number, no problem. They would then, there's a formula that allocates how much is paper, how much is this, based on that study that Christine put y'all put the chart up for. The quality issue would be harder. The county wouldn't know that for Princeton proper unless a separate study was done. But Princeton could ask the county, depending on, I'm not sure where it's going exactly right now, but Princeton could say, we want to see the loads dumped and do a visual audit. Some places do that. I've done that for different clients that run county programs where we literally watch every load that's dropped and we know exactly where the truck comes from, and we do a visual inspection. We don't sort it all out, but it gives us an idea of the contaminants that are in the load. That can be done, but it's something you have to do specially. As far as gross tonnages, yeah, just ask Mercer County. They should be able to give you those numbers, no problem.
Hey, it's Christine. I want to chime in here. The town was included in a grant request that was accepted by the Rutgers Eco Complex to do a 4-season waste audit, which should be starting as soon as the pandemic allows. So the town will have at some point in the future sort of quarterly waste audit information.
And that'll tell you what you're generating is going as garbage. That's what you're doing. Yeah, that'll tell you your garbage breakdown, meaning what you're missing in the recycling stream, number one, and what you're still throwing away as garbage, number two.
Correct.
Great. Well, thank you for answering all these questions. And maybe you could show your video now.
Sure. Let me call that up.
And then we'll wrap it up.
And to do that, what I'll have to do is one of two things. Either I will have to share my screen, or I can give you the link, however you want to do it. It's probably easiest if I just simply share a screen, but that's totally your call.
Why don't you give that a try and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Let me just get this up here. All right. Share screen. Now you should, in theory, now be able to see my screen. And there's always a time delay, so
Yes, we are seeing
you
it.
can see it. Okay, so let's start this. Assume it works. You don't really need the music. Why is full screen unavailable? Can you all see this well enough? Because if you can't, I'll go to a different source.
I see it. It's just small. I don't know.
Yeah, let me just take it back. I don't know why it won't let me share the screen full size, but that's kind of odd, isn't it? I hate computers, by the way, just so you know. I know we need them now in particular, but I really despise them. Anyone else have that feeling, by the way? Or is it just me?
Yeah, they're good and bad. They help
We
us.
can all share that one.
Yeah.
All right. Cycle coach, single stream. Ah, here we go. This I know will come up full. This is what I use for my class. It's the same video. There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the music off. You don't need this. Now, this program is a countywide program that's run by Burlington County, and it's a combination of the county, and they use the Occupational Training Center. Adults with disabilities are given full-time jobs. For just information purposes, yes, that's a real dog. And it was sort of a mascot for the county. It's still alive, but it doesn't collect litter anymore. Its habit was to go collect litter in the river. This is a single stream plant. This is very much like, in every way, the kind of plant that will process your material. This is owned and operated by the county directly, and it costs approximately $15 million to build. To give you context of what it costs. Cans, bottles, paper all come into the plant and are dropped, and they're dumped into a feed hopper by machines, by loaders, and then fed into the system. And what happens here is this system is designed so that the speed of the material going forward is controlled, but not just all hitting as a big clump, and the pile is broken up by those teeth you just saw so that it's flatter. Why? Because no matter how automated, you still need people. This will look very much like your mix. And people sort the contaminants as fast as they can. Plastic bags are absolutely the worst thing you could put in there. They're looking for the wrong material that's sorting. These are the weird things that have been caught out of there you wouldn't believe. We've caught revolvers and everything else. As I said to you, it's a two-dimensional, three-dimensional sort. These drums spinning very fast are designed to make the flat material go one way and everything else the other. Essentially, all the other materials fall through the hole, the flat material goes forward. Notice again, plastic bags, and these people are working at pretty high speed. When you put plastic bags in, you jam the system. Hoses, plastic bags, plastic wrap, anything else destroys the system. They have to shut that down, and someone manually has to go in and pull that off. The paper, and I apologize for some of the clarity here, it's because of the full screen. The paper is floating, and that's how that works. The problem with broken glass, of course, is it goes through into the system. The problem, and by the way, just as an aside, you cannot put shredded paper in your recycling bin because shredded paper falls through the holes and it goes out as garbage. You can do shredded paper in your shredding event, just can't do it here. Think of this system like the game Mousetrap. All right? It's a big sorting system of a lot of moving parts happening at the same time. The crushed glass in this case now has a market, by the way. This county found a market for every ton of glass. So if you live, which you don't, but if you lived in Burlington County, you could easily take care of your glass, and then it wouldn't matter aluminum cans or glass bottles. As you can see in the sort, the screens help get the paper off. And it said surf, that's two-dimensional. Paper's light, and it pushes it over the top. The more that it can do that, and thus the problem if you put your plastic lid in, it's going to surf with the paper. Other paper will, of course, fall through, and it will indeed end up with the cans and bottles. Again, you have people here who are there to sort it out. Why do you rinse? Why do you clean? That's why. It's not bad. This is when it was 95% pure. That's no longer good enough. They have to get up another 4%. And the way they do that is slowing the conveyor line down that you're looking at and adding more people. And guess what that does to the cost of recycling? The workers here, in most cases, these are adults with disabilities who are employed. So this program is designed to do two things: get recycling done and employ people who are otherwise difficult to employ. A good program that way. It's the oldest in the state, by the way. Lots of people. Answers your question about cans. Now, what you've gotten here, take a look at this. Remember how it all came in. Not bad. This is looking pretty good. Again, they're looking for things that don't belong there. We've gotten boat anchors down there, swords. There was actually, it's a real sword came in the line. Imagine picking that up. They take cartons, just like we were talking about earlier. And each step of the process, what you're seeing is a cleaner and cleaner stream. The optical sorter is the key for their plastics recycling. Number 1 and number 2 is all they recycle with the optical sorter, and the light reflecting back allows the machine to determine what goes where. And you'll see this in slow motion, which is kind of nifty. The slow motion picture of this will show you that what happens is as the optical sorter determines it's a number 1, a puff of air blows against that plastic to put it in the right bin, and everything else falls the other way. They're about 95, 96% accurate. The bigger plants in the country may have 30 of these optical sorters. They cost about $300,000 a piece, to give you an idea of how technical this is. No matter what machine you use, you're still using people to quality control this. So at some point, again, people are going to look at what's going in front of them and pick out what doesn't belong. And then the process in the end is you have reversed, if you will, everything you put at the curb into pure product. Magnets are easy, right? The magnet takes the steel out. Aseptic is done manually here, but it can be done by machine also. They just chose not to make the investment of the machinery here. And then they use what's called an eddy current separator for aluminum. Aluminum doesn't respond to a magnet, but it will respond to an electric charge. Sort of like giving someone a shock in the wintertime. This is still one of the most valuable components in that stream on a per ton basis. Aluminum right now is about 15 cents a pound. PET is about 10 this week. There was a time it was worth as much as aluminum. That's all PET bottles. And going to your question of lids, it's put in bales. The bale has value. Anything that falls on the ground is sent back through the system, so they don't lose it. The problem with leaving lids on, in particular, and some people do, the lid on a big bottle, you can't crush the bottle. If you don't believe that, put a lid on a 2-liter bottle if you have one and try to crush it by stepping on it. You'll fall over before you crush the bottle. So we usually tell people take the lids off. Don't leave your lids on the plastic bottle, because that'll pop out of the bale and you just wasted a lot of time and money. They sort cardboard separate from mixed paper because cardboard, corrugated, right now is the most valuable component of the stream from a paper standpoint. Why? Because there's a shortage of cardboard. How many of you have gotten cardboard box shipments in the past month? Probably most of us, right? You're ordering things online today. Got to have boxes, but the big commercial sources of those boxes aren't there. So the price is really high, but there's not enough cardboard to fill the demand. This is all specific, by the way, to Burlington County. This is not specific to Mercer, but the concept is the same. They take virtually everything you take. They have a 9% contamination rate, which is remarkable for a single stream plant. Their purpose is, of course, to save landfill space. They have their own landfill. Your garbage is sent to a transfer station and then shipped to a landfill elsewhere. So to give you the context there, much of this is much of it is what you do, by the way. The point here, oops, did I lose you?
You're with us.
We're here.
Okay. No, I thought Molly was speaking and I didn't hear her. The simple fact is that single stream is more complicated. And so before you ask, I'll answer. It's cheaper to collect because it's faster. And that's why people went to it. And now we're suggesting to go the reverse. It was an idea, it didn't work. It didn't work as well as it should have.
Great. Well, thank you for the video. That's really informative and enlightening. So I'm glad you shared it with us. It explains a lot of what you were speaking about as well. Molly, any closing thoughts?
I think we just want to thank you so much, Wayne, for all of your thoughts on these various topics. This is a complicated, recycling is quite complicated, and on a daily basis, we get a number of questions along the lines of what you answered today. So it was truly helpful to hear your expert answers and really go right to the source. So thank you so very much for your time today. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone in the future. We will have, yep.
Sorry to barge in. Wayne, if I can put you on the spot, we didn't get a chance to talk at all about food waste and the new food waste recycling bill. Could we perhaps schedule a future Ask an Expert Anything event where you would help, where you could talk about the new food waste legislation and what's happening in New Jersey?
Sure, we can do that. And I would say that, just remember that bill, just so everyone doesn't get too excited about it, has nothing to do with residential.
Right.
So it is just big source. But it is still very exciting. It goes to that one question of why don't we have laws that require manufacturers or require that we do certain things? Well, New Jersey did just pass, as Christine was alluding to, a food waste recycling law that does start to phase in the mandate of recycling food waste on large scale, which is really what you want to go after first. And of course, you guys were one of the leaders on food waste composting and recycling as a community a number of years ago.
Yeah, but I think that conversation will help our community understand just what will be required to build the infrastructure that is needed to make it cost effective to have curbside residential organics pick up again. So
yep.
I think it's still, would be of great interest to our community.
Sure. I know there are still a lot of questions that I'm sure you all have. Just understand that when I normally do this, it's a 6-week course. 6 days, 1 day a week for 6 weeks, and it's 7 hours a day. So we just condensed 36 hours into this hour and a half, roughly.
Great.
Wow. Impressive.
Okay, well, thanks again, Wayne, and thanks to all our participants for joining us this afternoon. We'll look forward to seeing you again online. Take care.
Everybody go have a glass of wine. It's on Molly. Take care, everybody. Be safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.